Hello, welcome to InFocus Recouched. It's fantastic you can join us.
Coming up, did you know volunteering can be good for your health? Family life educator Trafford Fisher says it might even be as good for you as stopping smoking.
Wow. In today's Food in Focus segment, we'll learn the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian and why 90% of people would probably benefit from their services.
Yep. And today we've got a bit of an Indian theme going on. We'll hear later from a man who's committed to making a difference in the lives of widows in India. But first, let's meet someone else from India with an incredible story of transformation.
The hands that once carried bombs and guns now carry the Holy Bible. And the owner of those hands is Pastor Michael Geoffrey. How are you, Michael?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here and welcome to Australia, your first trip.
Yeah, thank you. This is my first trip.
Now, Michael, you, as I said in the introduction, you have an incredible story and an incredible transformation. Take us back to several years ago when you were actively involved in politics in your state, Andhra Pradesh, is that right?
Andhra Pradesh.
But you were more than a politician, weren't you? You were sort of a local strongman. What was happening there?
Yeah, actually the area that I lived is a very faction-ridden area. People were living with bombs and guns. So when I entered politics, I thought if a man has a lot of money and wealth and power, he is a blessed man. So that's how I entered into politics. And my enemy was a dreaded killer. So because I entered politics, there was an enmity between him and me.
So these political factions, it's more than just arguments or about ideology. It actually got violent. People died.
Yeah, my enemy wanted to kill me and I wanted to kill him. And so many people died during those 14 years of my political life. And even the government booked me under the National Security Act, and I had been to jail many times. So I was a very ferocious man, and living with bodyguards, and I was a very cruel man.
And I understand it wasn't only to the people you were working with and the people you were working against that were victims of your violence, it was even in your own family. Is that right?
Yeah, my wife suffered much because I used to ill-treat her worse than an animal. I was addicted to alcohol and I used to beat her mercilessly, you know. Once when I beat her, the stick broke on her. But she was a Christian and she used to pray for me. And when I went out on political feuds, sometimes she would pray for me till I returned home.
You would have had people trying to bomb you, people trying to shoot you, all this sort of thing?
Yeah, nearly 60 to 70 times the Lord protected me. And
the Lord protected a bad man, you're trying to tell me?
Yes, the worst. I was the worst, I can say that.
Goodness. But is it right that you must have ended up in jail, or consequences happen in the end, don't they?
Yeah, I had been to jail many times, but that actually did not change me. I became more and more ferocious.
So, but nevertheless, I mean, you're living a very stressful life at this time. Your life is under threat. You're drinking. I don't imagine there would have been anyone that you could be really close to share your fears or what was in your heart. And you actually ended up in a psychiatric hospital. Is that right?
Yeah, I became a psychiatric patient, and I thought I would land up in the mental hospital. And I had been to many psychiatrists, and I was willing to spend any amount of money for peace. I did not have peace. And in the night I could not sleep well. And so many times I went into my bedroom, and it was very difficult to experience those torments because of all my political sins and the murders that took place.
Did you consider suicide?
Yeah, many times I wanted to kill myself. I locked myself in my bedroom and took my revolver, and many times I put it on my head and wanted to shoot myself because the suffering in my head was so much.
So, but you didn't. What happened?
But I was always afraid what will happen to me if I die.
Because you were brought up Christian, so you had some idea, I guess, didn't you? Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I didn't really have any idea of heaven and hell, because I used to think that Jesus Christ was a weak God. That's why he died on the cross. I didn't believe that he died for my sins. And so I didn't really care much for God, but I was afraid of death. In politics, I was very brave, but if I saw a coffin box, if I saw a grave, that would, make me very afraid. That's why I could not shoot myself. I did not want to die. But it was difficult to live in the body and difficult to die also.
Yeah. Was it your wife who started taking you to church and sort of was an important person in helping you rediscover Christ?
Yeah, when I was very much troubled and I started crying helplessly, that was when my wife came to me and asked me, would you like to come and see a pastor? So she was always praying for me, of course, and trying to tell me about the Lord, but it didn't get into my head. Yeah, in 1993, I was at the rock bottom. That was when she took me to the pastor. And the pastor said, if you confess your sins, the Lord is going to forgive you. I thought there would be no forgiveness for me. Even if they take me out of the town and stone me to death, that punishment is not sufficient for me.
Sure.
But when they told me that the Lord would forgive me, I believed what they said. Then it was a miracle, though I did not know how to pray. When I started praying, suddenly the Lord started speaking to me. And
so you just opened your heart, just that tiny little chink to God, and he began to transform your life. Yeah. I mean, asking God for forgiveness is one thing, but what about all those people that you hurt along the way? What about them?
Yeah, once when the Lord started speaking to me and when I realized that He is the true God, then I wanted to set right myself with people. So I apologized to nearly 300 people, my enemies. I apologized to my wife also. So I humbled myself.
Yeah.
I did not want to have any hindrance between God and me. I wanted to be crystal clear. So I confessed all my sins from childhood till all the murders that took place, the political murders.
You haven't ended up in jail for those murders. You somehow got let off?
Yeah, after I was saved, actually the government removed all my cases. That was another miracle.
It's just another miracle. Yeah, that's incredible. It's the Bible says that when we humble ourselves, God will then lift us up, and that's been your experience, hasn't it? Because you've been traveling around India as an evangelist, sharing your story, sharing this testimony, and seeing lives transformed. Do we hear about that story in your book here, From Guns to Gospel?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you would like to check out Michael Geoffrey's book, Guns to Gospel, you can also, there's a video that goes with it.
Yeah.
It's all accessible via your website, which again is gunstogospel.com.
.org.
Oh, .org. Sorry, gunstogospel.org. The correct address is right there on your screen. Hey, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and yeah, thank God for the way He's transformed your life.
It's a pleasure for us.
Man, that's a pretty extreme story. What a life.
Yeah, I know. And I think honestly though, Dora, that Michael's wife is really the hero of the story. She was actually in the studio while we were shooting that interview. She's quite small and she seems very quiet. Her English is limited, really. But the power of her prayers, wow.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. We'll take a quick ad break now. Back in a minute.
We live our lives running around, rarely stopping to ask ourselves where we're going and what our final destination is. In the end, our lives become little more than routine. Step beyond and discover a path that offers comfort, love and hope. Visit hopeoffer.com/step beyond or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
We're going to start with some soybeans. Use some chickpeas, an onion, we have a teaspoon of salt, slice some tomatoes, slice some cucumber, Some red onion just to give it a bit of freshness. So just make little falafels like this. They just smell amazing. Let's make our tahini dressing. Let's get in some tomatoes, cucumbers, some falafels. Drizzle some of this lovely dressing. All you need to do is roll it up and you've got a delicious lunch for your family.
Hi, welcome back. Now, we're all interested in being healthier, looking good, feeling awesome, but sometimes there's so much health information out there, it's hard to know where to start.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where health professionals like Sue Rad come in. Let's take a look. Well, I'm here at my consultation with Sue Rad, our dietitian, who tells me we all should possibly be seeing a dietitian. Is that right, Sue?
Absolutely, Kent. And the reason for this is that research now shows that up to 90% of all chronic diseases are totally preventable. 90, not 19. That's right. 90. So we're talking about things like colorectal cancer, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. So these are the biggest killers.
Epidemics.
Absolutely. And what's most impressive in terms of the data is that diet and lifestyle can offer the greatest benefits. So, for example, there was a study called the Diabetes Prevention Program. And in that study, they show that by simply tweaking the way you eat, improving that a little bit, moving a bit more, losing just a tiny bit of weight, that this was twice as effective as the drug called metformin, which is what people get put on once they're pre-diabetic. So what you do in your own lifestyle can have a great impact on your risk of even developing a disease.
That's huge, Sue, because just earlier in the program, you know, Danielle told us in the news that diabetes is now the world's largest single health problem.
That's right.
400 million people or something around the world.
Yes, and it's only going to get worse. So not only do we now know that you can prevent most of these conditions, but you can also treat them better once you have them, and you can even reverse certain diseases. So seeing a qualified dietitian can really, really help. To give you another example, if we're talking about somebody who's had, say, a heart attack, we've known for years now that after a first heart attack, if you significantly change the way you eat, and the Leon Diet Heart Study showed this, if you adopt a Mediterranean-style diet, you can prevent a second heart attack, or at least you can reduce your risk by up to 70%. So these are big figures.
That's huge, because I imagine someone who's had one heart attack is at increased risk of having a second one.
Absolutely.
Is that right? But
Absolutely.
you can reduce that risk
significantly by changing the way you eat, changing how much you move, and obviously addressing things like smoking and alcohol.
So will my GP be able to tell me about this and advise me on diet?
GPs will be able to give you some general advice, but you really need to seek out somebody who's highly qualified in food and nutrition. Now, to actually find somebody who's an expert in food and nutrition, you do need to know where to look and who to look for, because a lot of people set themselves up as experts in nutrition.
You're right.
And of course we all eat, so we're all experts on food.
And the internet's full, isn't it? Full of it, isn't it? I mean, all
absolutely.
the little banner ads on the side saying, hey, you know, acai berries are going to change your life.
And if you set up a beautiful website, you look like an expert. But the true experts are people known as accredited practicing dietitians or registered dietitians, depending upon which country you live in. And the reason for this, Kent, is because to become an accredited practicing dietitian, you've got to study at university level for 5 years, and this is post-grad, so that's the equivalent training to, say, a dentist in the dental field.
Wow. And are you qualified as a dietitian yourself, Sue?
Yes, in fact, I'm what's called an advanced accredited practicing dietitian, and that's an honour accorded to less than 2% of all dietitians. But when you are an accredited practicing dietitian, it means that Medicare will recognise
in
you
Australia
and give patients a rebate because you are qualified to give clinical advice.
What about a nutritionist? Is that the same thing? Or
no,
because sometimes
it's not.
the terms seem interchangeable.
It's a very good question. So many people can advise on nutrition generally, and that's fine. But if you're actually going to give medically relevant advice, only a qualified dietitian can do that. So in order to prevent, better manage and reverse disease, if you want the highest level of intervention, you want to seek out someone who's highly qualified.
Okay, now get your pens out because we're going to run a few websites by you now. If you live in Australia, Sue, there's a website you can go to.
Dietitians Association of Australia website to find an APD, accredited practicing dietitian.
Right, have you got that? It's on your screen. And while they're writing that down, Sue, New Zealand has
New
a similar
Zealand,
arrangement?
in the US, they're called registered dietitians. So if you look up Dietitians New Zealand, that website, you'll also be able to find a dietitian in your area.
Okay. And if you live in Sydney, Sue's in your area. And if you want to check out some of what she has to offer, there's plenty of free stuff on your website, isn't
Absolutely.
there?
Lots of lovely recipes that not only taste good, Kent, but can help you prevent getting sick in the first place. And once you do have conditions like diabetes, to better manage those conditions, which is incredibly important if you're trying to prevent complications.
All right. And Sue's website is right there on your screen. Hey, thanks so much for your time today, Sue.
Pleasure, Kent.
So what do you think about that, Dora? Can you see yourself going to a dietitian maybe?
I don't know. I think I'd have to be pretty sick before I go see any health professional. But,
At all?
Yeah, you know what? And I'll probably just want some pills to make it better.
Yeah.
That's not very preventative, is it?
No, not really. But yeah, I guess when you're, sort of young and hip, like us, that's maybe okay. But when those chronic diseases start kicking in, heart problems, obesity, high cholesterol, diabetes, that kind of thing, well, then you've got a chronic issue that needs a long-term solution.
Yeah, definitely. And lifestyle change can totally be a part of that.
Oh, yeah.
And what's even better, though, is getting the lifestyle right before the chronic diseases kick in.
Oh, yeah. Bingo.
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious once it's been pointed out to you, isn't it? But less obvious is Trafford Fisher's suggestion for a healthy and happy life: volunteering.
Now, today we're talking about volunteering. And I'll tell you what, so many volunteers in my time have just been such a blessing. And I know for volunteers, it is something that makes us feel really good, doesn't it?
It is. It is. There's some really interesting research, Danielle, on this. And when we think about volunteering, it's something we do for somebody else. But as you said, what we're discovering is that it benefits us. I've got some stats here for you.
All right,
I have to
let's
share
have a
something.
listen.
Notice this, it says people who are kind live longer, healthier lives, and they experience fewer aches or pains. So there's a good start. Okay.
Why do you think that is?
They reckon that when you and I do something for somebody else, it actually creates a brain reaction, chemicals in the brain. It's like a kind of it's a euphoria thing. It makes us feel good. And the benefits, there's some real benefits for the oldies.
Okay.
Well, when I say the oldies, the 55 and older.
The oldies, that's very old.
You like that? Here it is. People who volunteer, 55 and over, who volunteer for 2 or more organisations have an impressive 44% lower likelihood of dying. Seriously, it's amazing. And they said that's after sifting at every other contributing factor like smoking and your physical health and exercise. And it says this is a stronger effect than exercising 4 times a week or going to church. It means that volunteering is nearly as beneficial to our health as quitting smoking.
There you go. So there you go, guys. If you want to save your life, go and volunteer.
Do some volunteering. They says they feel stronger, more energetic, they feel calmer, less depressed, and this is what's exciting too is it's also for adolescents. They've found that adolescents, Danielle, really do well when they volunteer. It says teens who are giving are also happier, more active, involved, excited and engaged in life than the people, their teens or counter-teens who don't volunteer as much.
And I think too, Trafford, with the suicide rates the way they are at the moment, particularly within teens, what a great way for them to get involved.
It's this whole sense of diving out of yourself and looking at somebody else and finding their needs and reaching out. It says teens who volunteer tend to be more socially competent and have higher self-esteem.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And I love I've got to share this little statement by John Wesley. Here it says, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. Yay. It's fabulous. So I think there's some incredible benefits. We need to all get out there and do something for somebody else, and we'll be the winners as well.
Wow, that's fantastic advice, Traff. And, get out there, everyone, volunteer, find somewhere in your local community that you can contribute.
That's a bit unexpected, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's obvious that volunteering can help you connect better with other people in your community, but that it could actually improve your physical health?
Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise, isn't it?
Yeah.
But absolutely worth knowing, I think.
Oh, definitely. Time for a break now. Back in a sec.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. Now, I have to admit, Dora, I'd actually forgotten about this next interview. It's from about 5 years ago, but it's testimony to what can happen when an ordinary person sees a need and decides to take action.
That's awesome. Let's take a look.
Travelling to developing countries often has the touch of the exotic or even the spice of danger. But for my first guest today, a journey to India was something he just couldn't get out of his head. Welcome, Bruce Judd.
Thank you, James.
Now, Bruce, India. How long ago did you first arrive in that country?
Well, I've always wanted to travel to India, but I never really got there until 2 years ago.
Okay.
In 2009.
So you're an Australian. How was it arriving in such a country?
Well, it wasn't such a shock for me. A lot of people find it a big shock, but I had travelled a lot to third world countries anyway. But certainly I think the dimensions of poverty and just the numbers of people there is quite staggering.
Okay, and how did it make you feel? What was your response? Do you remember?
Well, my response was pretty positive. What I love about India is the colour. It's just an amazingly place with women in these amazing colours, and it's just a beautiful, vibrant kind of place.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, there's the contrast of that with the poverty and disadvantage that exists in so much of India.
Now, that's one thing I do know about India, that the huge population and the large amount of poverty. How did that strike you? Did you get a sense for that?
Well, yeah, there are certain things that strike you at first. I mean, when you start to see slums and things like that around some of the major cities, it's pretty shocking.
Yes.
When you're in the rural areas, where mostly we're talking about today,
yes,
the poverty is a little less noticeable. I mean, people are poor, but they basically live subsistence lives, and they're reasonably happy and good communities.
Is it something we should feel sorry for?
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, so feeling sorry doesn't help people that much.
That's true.
But I guess yes, I think compassion. You know, we know that it says in the Bible that Jesus was moved with compassion, and he healed people. So I think as Christians we need to have compassion, and compassion should drive our action to help people.
Absolutely. You did mention that you arrived at a remote part of India called Jaganpeta, is that correct?
Jaganpeta, yeah.
Tell us how you ended up there and what you found there.
Well, it seemed accidental, although I think it was probably the Lord's leading. A friend of mine who runs a Christian website was invited to go there, and he asked me to go with him.
Yes.
I hadn't been to India, so I thought, why not? When I got there, we met this amazing pastor, and his passion for the poor and disadvantaged in his village.
Yes. So you were stirred at this, and what developed there? Now, there's an interesting story on this.
Well, this man is an amazing man, an amazing evangelist and singer and all kinds of things. Very, very active evangelistically, but he had a particular passion for the widows in his church and also in his community. I think there are about 20 widows in his church, and by widows in India we include abandoned women, and there's quite a lot of them. And of course, once they're abandoned, they're in very dire straits in terms of poverty. Mostly they're unskilled.
Yes.
So he had a great passion to help them. And so we talked about some ideas, and the sewing training centre was one idea that we came up with.
A sewing school, is it?
Yeah, it's a tailoring training centre.
Okay. I think I would benefit from something like that too. Yeah. My wife would tell you that as well. And so you started a sewing school, in essence, to meet this need with these particular ladies in the community.
Yeah, there's actually 2 training centres. Initially there was one that was started in Jaganpeta.
Yes.
And since then they've started a second one in a nearby village called Raganpeta.
Raganpeta.
And there's about 20 women get trained in each of these for over a 6-month period. Okay. And then they graduate. We give them a free sewing machine.
Wow. And
they're able to earn an income to support their family.
So what's been the impact there for the community? How's it been received?
Huge impact, actually. I mean, it seems like a little thing.
Yes.
A sewing machine costs about $80 Australian, but it can actually transform a person's life.
Yes.
And I've visited many of the women in their homes that have graduated, and some of the stories are just amazing.
Tell us one of those stories.
Well, the ones that really impact me are the ones that become Christians,
Yes.
or the ones that receive miraculous healing. And there have been 4 or 5 cases of miraculous healing. One that was particularly precious to me was a woman that I visited who had a very severe case of epilepsy.
Yes.
And just simply through prayer, she was completely healed. And,
Wow.
and she was basically, as far as the doctors were concerned, she was a hopeless case.
Wow.
And now she's just a wonderful, happy, joyous Christian woman.
It's amazing the faith that exists in some of these places.
It is,
isn't
it's
it?
astounding.
Something that we could learn something from, I think, in the West.
Yeah.
Speaking of the West, what sort of impact has it had on your local church? Where do you church?
Well, I go to Little Seventh-day Adventist Church at Sherrybrook.
In Sydney?
Yeah, here in Sydney. Mm-hmm. And it has had an impact on that church. They're very strong supporters of this project, and
Yes.
all of them, I think, have contributed to the Tailoring Training Centre and some of our other activities in India.
Yes.
But I'm also part of a wider network of people that support this project from all around Australia, and even some overseas.
Excellent. So that's the effect on these Christians here in Sydney. How about you? What impact has it had on you spiritually and your understanding of God's work in the world?
Well, it's interesting because going there, I've been able to be actively involved in evangelism.
Yes.
Because we don't just go there to visit the women and to support the project, we go there and help with evangelistic campaigns and other things as well.
Yes.
And I think just to see the changes in people's lives, it just shows you the power of the gospel.
Yes.
And also the power of prayer. So I think those sort of things are things that have really impacted on me and my personal spiritual journey, yeah.
Wow. Now, if our viewers want to find out more, I know there's no official website, but where could they go? Do you have a church website?
Well, we do have a church website, and there's a page on there called Heart for India.
Heart for India.
And there'll be some details on there that people can contact us if they need to.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the program today, Bruce, and God bless you as you continue to serve the people of India.
Thank you, James. My pleasure.
Something so simple like a sewing machine and some training, and these women have a way to survive.
Yeah, I know. I actually called up Bruce the other day. I wanted to know, is the project still going? The answer is yes. He said they've now trained around 900 women.
Wow.
Yeah, that's make a big difference for a lot of families, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. A little bit of help can make incredible changes for people in developing countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's been a great session of InFocus Highlights. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on the couch.
Look after yourself. We'll see you next time on InFocus Recouched.
God bless.